Hello, my name is Joshua Yale, and I'm here with Wanda Vision Director Matt Shackman. And given that episode 8 finally showed us the origins of the Scarlet Witch, we're going to go through the big moments and have Matt break them down and share some insight and behind the scenes trivia. So Matt, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Cool. So first up, we have Wanda's tragic childhood incident. Now, we've already heard about this through dialogue in Age of Ultron. So how did you go about taking something where we already know what's going to happen and then adding in this new wrinkle where they only survived because Wanda used her power for the first time to disable the bomb?
Yeah, that scene is so important because we get a glimpse into their family life. This episode is all about love and it's all about loss. And we get to see Wanda with her parents. We get to see Pietro as a youngster. We see that they bond over television. We see that Wanda has learned English from American sitcoms, and that her father is a bootlegger who is trying to sell those DVDs and not having not a lot of good luck. So it's a very important scene for the beginning because it's explaining why sitcoms, why that is the place that Wanda takes solace, and we see that throughout the episode. And it's also where we get a sense that Wanda has powers already before she's met the Mind Stone, that, as Agatha calls her, it's a baby witch obsessed with sitcoms. Yeah.
And next up, we have Wanda getting her powers from the Mind Stone, and we get another new wrinkle where Wanda has a vision of what looks like herself as the Scarlet Witch in her comic book accurate costume, which is so cool. So can you tell us, what is this strange vision all about? Like, what's going through her mind when she sees this?
This episode was about going through Wanda's past, but what's past is prologue, right? And so it's also about how she's been drawn forward into different moments that will eventually lead to other places we haven't seen yet. So it's as much about the past as it is about her future. It's an episode about destiny, really.
Moving right along, we have Vision consoling Wanda when she's in mourning. And this line he says to her has been heavily discussed online. Vision says,
"But what is grief, if not love persevering?"
So I'd love to hear your thoughts on the meaning of this line and what it means for Wanda to hear it in this vulnerable moment in her life.
The episode was so important because it pulls back the curtain on what the whole story has been all season. And hopefully folks can go back and look at episodes 1, 2, and 3 in a new light now. I mean, this is a story about love. It's about loss. It's about grief. It's about how we move on from loss. Something I think we all know all too much about in general, but especially this year of the pandemic. And so everything that we've done so far, even silly live audience sitcoms in the 50s, is fueled by Wanda's loss and about how she's trying to find solace from that loss. So that's, what the Avengers HQ scene is really about. And it's also about their connection. We've seen them together. They've been quite charming together, making paprikash, and we've seen the highs and the lows. But this is the moment where they really come together. This is a moment where he provides the solace that she needs the way forward. And that line is quite beautiful, but it's also made especially beautiful by the line before it as well, when Wanda articulates what loss is like to her. And he is able to give her a way forward. He's able to show her that love is the way through that, which is, he's quite a wise person, Vision. Even though he's not human, he seems to be more human than any of us. He has some of the best lines in the MCU. I think that one written by, Laura Donney is gorgeous. And there's one in Ultron, which I love too.
But a thing isn't beautiful because it lasts.
So next we have Wanda going to Sword HQ and Twist not stealing Vision's body like we were led to believe. And we see Vision's body is pulled apart, which is imagery taken from the comics. And just like in the comics, what I really like about it is even though Vision is made up of synthetic parts, it's still disturbing to see him like this, because to us and to Wanda, he's a person. So this is like gruesome. So could you explain how you practically pulled this off and made it work so well?
That was a real challenge. It's one of my favorite scenes, but it required a lot. And we weren't able to build such a large set. So we had to kind of go out and try to find an operating theater from S.W.O.R.D., which is not something that you can find on every street corner. So we ended up going into a building that was an old hospital, I believe, that was owned by Emory University. And Mark Worthington he's our production designer, took this interior courtyard that was actually open to the sky and turned it into this incredible set. And we built Hayward's office on one of the floors overlooking it, so it was all practical. But it was, quite a challenge. We had to, have Wanda fly down and be with the pieces of Vision down below. But practically, a lot of that is stuff that we had there on the day, and some of it is enhanced through VFX as well, which is the same as whenever you see Vision. It's Paul Bettany, but on top of him is a layer of CG as well. Yeah.
Very cool, very cool. Alrighty, next we see Wanda going to Westview, and in an explosion of grief, she uses her powers to create the Hex. This is an iconic moment from the comics, and I love how you can see like the same stylish building blocks in the House of M art style. So how did you approach bringing this truly astonishing and tragic moment to life?
Worked very hard over many months on what that sequence would look like, what were the moments that we wanted to see, how would we build it. I worked with some amazing storyboard artists, in particular Richard Bennett, Simeon Wilkins, and Jeremy Simser. And I would say that whole sequence evolved over many months through storyboards, and certainly the influences that you mentioned are there. How do you create reality? And we did look at other examples of reality creation in the comics. But mostly, again, it wanted to be rooted in the emotional story that was being told. This was the story of someone whose grief was so overwhelming that it was unlocking a new power inside of her.
Very cool, very cool. And finally, it all comes down to Agatha at long last uttering the name
Scarlet Witch.
And in a previous episode, there's a little joke about how Wanda doesn't have a funny nickname yet. So I want to know all about what kind of thought and care you put into how, when we finally do hear her superhero name, it lands not as a joke, but as this rousing fist pump moment.
Well, the show is definitely about where Wanda is going, and about this destiny that we talked about. That particular episode is exploring her past so that we can understand what's coming up. We did put that line in earlier on to draw attention to the fact that she has just been called Wanda Maximoff in the MCU. And those that know better know that there's another name for her as well, those who are comic fans. And so here's Agatha. We know that there's magic in the MCU. We know from Doctor Strange and that world, but we haven't seen witches before. And so we get a chance to see through Agatha and through Salem in our flashback that it's been around for a long time. And Agatha is able to help Wanda along this road to kind of figure out who she really is and put a name on the power that she's never really known what to call and how to refer to it.